Hi, my name is Emily, and I want to share my story about learning English. I used to struggle with English. It felt like a mountain too high to climb. But slowly, with small steps, I started to see a change. Let me tell you how I did it, and how you can, too. When I was little, I would sit in my room and cry because I didn't understand English. My friend Jessica once told me, "Emily, start with one word a day." That was my first tip. Just one word each day. It doesn't have to be big. I started with apple. Jessica said, "Learn like a baby learns to walk, one step at a time." I remember standing in front of the mirror, saying apple over and over. My mom heard me and smiled. She said, "Small things grow." Her words stayed with me. Every day, I would learn a new word. Slowly, my vocabulary grew. The second tip I learned was to listen to English everywhere. I would watch cartoons like Dora the Explorer. It made me smile because even Dora made learning fun. One day, I understood a whole sentence. I ran to my mom and said, "Mom, I understood." She hugged me tight. That was one of my happiest moments. Listening is powerful. My dad told me once, "You have two ears. Use them." So I started listening to English songs. At first, I didn't understand the words, but the music felt beautiful. I would hum along, and one day, the words made sense. Songs can teach you English without you even trying. Another important thing I learned was to read out loud. My teacher, Mrs. Carter, told me, "Your voice is your teacher." I didn't understand what she meant at first. But then, I started reading books like The Cat in the Hat. I would read every word out loud. It felt silly, but soon I began to feel more comfortable speaking in English. Tip number 3, read to yourself. One night, I was reading a story to my little sister, Sophie. She looked at me with her big eyes and said, "Emily, you sound so good." I felt so proud in that moment. English was no longer scary. It was my friend. Tip 4, find a friend to speak English with. I found that friend in Jessica. We made a deal to speak only in English during lunch breaks. It was hard at first, but we laughed at our mistakes and helped each other. Mistakes are how we grow, Jessica would say. And she was right. Every mistake made me stronger. When I started writing in English, it was even harder. I remember writing my first sentence, "I love my dog." It was simple, but it was mine. Mrs. Carter told me, "Write from your heart, not your head." That was tip 5. Write what you feel. Writing was tough, but it got easier with time. I started writing in a journal every night before bed. I would write about my day, my feelings, and my dreams. Writing became my escape, a place where English felt safe. Tip 6, practice every day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. One day, I saw a quote that changed everything for me. Rome wasn't built in a day. Learning English takes time, but every small effort matters. I kept a notebook of words I didn't know. Every night I would look up the meanings. My notebook became my treasure. Tip 7. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There were times when I felt stuck. I would ask my teachers, my friends, and even strangers if I didn't know a word. People are kind when you ask for help. One day I was in a store and didn't know how to ask for something. I felt like crying, but I gathered my courage and asked, "Can you help me?" The lady smiled and helped me. I felt so strong in that moment. Tip 8. Make English a part of your life. I started labeling things in my room. My bed had a label, my lamp, my books. Every time I looked at them, I would say the word in English. It made learning fun. My room became my English classroom. One winter day, I was walking home from school when I saw a girl crying. She looked lost. I asked her, "Are you okay?" She didn't speak much English, but I understood her fear. I used the little English I knew to comfort her. That day, I realized how powerful language is. It helps us connect, understand, and care for each other. Tip 9. Use English in real-life situations. Don't just study from books. I started using English at the grocery store, on the bus, and even with my neighbors. Every conversation was a lesson. Tip 10. Celebrate your progress. Every time I learned a new word or phrase, I would reward myself with a small treat, like chocolate. It made learning sweet. As I got better, I wanted more. So, I started reading harder books. That's tip 11. Challenge yourself. I moved from The Cat in the Hat to Charlotte's Web. I didn't understand every word, but I didn't give up. My mom always told me, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Tip 12. Surround yourself with English. I changed my phone's language to English, followed English-speaking influencers, and even set my calendar in English. It was everywhere, and slowly English became part of who I was. My favorite tip, tip 13, is this: be patient. There were days when I felt like giving up. But I remembered what my dad always said: the darkest hour is just before the dawn, and he was right. Every time I wanted to quit, I reminded myself of how far I had come. Tip 14. Find a mentor. Mrs. Carter became my mentor. She would give me small tasks, like writing a short story or having a conversation in English. She always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Tip 15. Learn from your mistakes. I once said she is happy when I meant he is happy. Everyone laughed. But instead of feeling bad, I laughed too. It's okay to make mistakes. They are part of the journey. Tip 16. Use technology to help you. I started using language apps like Duolingo. It was like playing a game. Every time I leveled up, it felt like I had won a prize. Learning became fun. Tip 17. Join English groups online. I found an English learners group on Facebook. People from all over the world were learning together. It was inspiring to see others just like me, struggling but trying. Tip 18. Record yourself speaking. One day, I recorded myself talking about my day. When I played it back, I was shocked. My English sounded so much better than I thought. That's when I realized that I was improving every day, even when I didn't notice. Tip 19. Watch English movies with subtitles. I started watching movies like Frozen with English subtitles. It helped me connect the words to the sounds. My favorite part was singing along to the songs. Tip 20. Don't rush. Learning English is a journey, not a race. I used to think I had to learn fast, but I realized that slow progress is still progress. Tip 21. Make learning fun. I started playing word games with my sister. We would compete to see who could guess the most English words. It made learning feel like a game. Tip 22. Learn English expressions. My teacher once said, English is more than just words. It's about expressions. I learned phrases like it's raining cats and dogs and break a leg. They made me smile and feel more connected to the language. Tip 23. Learn grammar, but don't stress over it. I used to be scared of English grammar. But then Mrs. Carter told me, grammar is like a friend. The more you understand it, the easier it becomes. So, I started learning one grammar rule a week. Slowly, it became less scary. Tip 24. Practice speaking every day. Whether it was to myself, my family, or even the mirror, I made sure to speak English every day. Speaking out loud builds confidence. Tip 25. Read everything. From street signs to menus, I made it a habit to read everything in English. Each word was a new opportunity to learn. Tip 26. Think in English. My dad told me, when you think in English, you live in English. It took time, but slowly, I started thinking about simple things in English, like what I wanted for breakfast or where I was going. Tip 27. Set small goals. At first, my goal was to learn 5 words a week. Then, it became 10 words. Setting small goals made learning less overwhelming. Tip 28. Be curious. I would always ask, what does this word mean, or how do I say this in English? Curiosity is your best friend when learning a new language. Tip 29. Practice with children's books. They are simple, and the pictures help you understand the story. My sister and I would read picture books together. It was fun and easy to understand. Tip 30. Keep a positive attitude. Learning a language can be tough, but with a positive mindset, anything is possible. My mom always said, "Where there is hope, there is a way." Tip 31. Stay motivated. Every time I felt like quitting, I would remind myself of my dream to speak English fluently. Dreams keep us moving forward. Tip 32. Create an English environment. I filled my world with English. From books to music, it was everywhere. The more I was surrounded by it, the more natural it felt. Tip 33. Use English to express your feelings. When I was sad or happy, I would write about it in English. It made me feel more connected to the language and myself. Tip 34. Remember that it's okay to feel frustrated. There were days when I cried because English felt too hard. But my mom told me tears are just proof that you're trying. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It means you care. Tip 35. Never give up. The most important thing I learned is to never stop trying. English isn't easy, but with persistence, you will get there. Learning English changed my life. It helped me connect with new people, understand different cultures, and express myself in ways I never thought possible. So, don't give up. Keep going. As my dad always says, the only way to fail is to stop trying. I hope my story inspires you to keep learning, keep pushing, and keep believing in yourself. English is more than just a language. It's a door to a whole new world. Wouldn't you agree? Feel free to share your own tips or ask me anything. I'm always here to help you on your English journey. Hello, my name is Emily. I want to share my story of how I learned English. It was not easy, but it was full of emotions, tears, and small victories. When I was 10 years old, my family moved to New York. I didn't know any English. At school, I felt so lost. The teacher would talk, but it sounded like music I didn't understand. I wanted to cry every day. I felt alone. One day, I sat on the stairs at school and cried. A girl named Sarah came to me. She didn't speak my language, but she smiled and said, "Hi." That small word gave me hope. I thought, I want to learn English. I want to speak like Sarah. Tip 1. Start with small words. The first words I learned were "hi," "thank you," and "please." They helped me feel confident. You don't need to know big words to start. At home, I started watching cartoons. I loved Tom and Jerry because there were no words, only funny actions. But then I tried watching cartoons with words. I would repeat what they said, even if I didn't understand. Tip 2. Repeat what you hear. Even if you don't understand, repeat it. Your brain will start to remember the sounds. At school, I was too shy to speak. I would sit quietly and listen. One day, my teacher asked me to read a sentence. My heart was racing. I stood up and I tried. I made so many mistakes, but my teacher smiled and said, "Good job, Emily. You tried." I cried that day, but they were happy tears. Tip 3: don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. Every mistake is a step forward. I remember one night I was so frustrated. I was doing my homework, but I couldn't understand anything. I ran to my room, closed the door, and cried into my pillow. My mom came in, sat beside me, and said, "Emily, it's okay. Every day you get better." Her words comforted me, but I still felt the weight of my struggles. Tip 4: surround yourself with positive people. My mom's support helped me stay strong. Find people who encourage you. Months passed, and I could understand more. I started reading simple books, like The Cat in the Hat. Each page felt like a small victory. I would read out loud, even to my cat. Tip 5: read out loud. It helps you practice speaking and builds your confidence. There were times I wanted to quit, but every time I learned a new word, it felt like magic. English started to become my friend. I wrote small notes to myself, like "you can do this," and stuck them on my wall. Tip 6: write daily notes. Writing helps your brain remember better. Even small notes help. One day, at school, my teacher gave us an assignment to write a story. I wrote about my journey learning English. When I read it to the class, everyone clapped. I couldn't believe it. From a girl who couldn't speak, I had become someone who could tell a story. Tip 7: practice speaking in front of others. Even if it's scary, try speaking. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. English changed my life. It opened doors I never thought were possible. I made friends, understood movies, and started dreaming in English. It helped me communicate, share my feelings, and connect with others. Tip 8: use English every day. Practice makes perfect. Speak, listen, read, and write a little every day. Now, when I look back, I smile. My journey with English was filled with tears, but those tears watered my growth. English isn't just a language for me. It's a friend, a guide, and a key to many doors. So, if you're learning English, don't give up. Remember my story. Remember that every small word, every mistake, every tear is part of your success. I remember the first time I had to speak English outside of school. It was at the grocery store. My mom asked me to ask the cashier for a bag. I stood there, my heart pounding. I wanted to run away, but I took a deep breath and said, "Can I have a bag, please?" The cashier smiled and handed me the bag. I felt so proud. It was just one sentence, but it felt like I had climbed a mountain. Tip 9. Start small conversations. Ask simple questions or make small requests. It builds your confidence bit by bit. Every night, I would talk to myself in English. It sounds silly, but it helped. I would look in the mirror and say things like, "Hello, how are you today?" Or "What did I do at school at first?" It felt strange, but over time it became easier. Tip 10. Talk to yourself. Talking to yourself in English helps you practice without fear of judgment. One time, I had to give a presentation in class. I practiced for days, repeating the words over and over. When the day came, my hands were shaking. As I spoke, I stumbled over a few words, but I didn't stop. When I finished, my classmates clapped, and my teacher said, "Well done, Emily." I couldn't believe it. I felt like crying, but this time they were tears of joy. Tip 11. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Don't give up, even when it's hard. As I learned more English, I began to see the world differently. I could watch movies without subtitles, understand song lyrics, and even help my mom with English at the store. One time, we were at a restaurant, and my mom couldn't read the menu. I felt so proud when I helped her order. It was a small moment, but it felt like I was becoming stronger. Tip 12. Help others with English. When you help someone else, it shows how much you've learned. It also helps you practice. There was a day I'll never forget. I was in the park, sitting on a bench, reading a book in English. A little girl came up to me and asked, "What are you reading?" I looked at her, surprised. Without thinking, I said, "It's a story about a girl who learns to be brave." The girl smiled and said, "That sounds nice." At that moment, I realized something. I was not scared anymore. English had become a part of me. Tip 13. Read stories in English. Reading helps you understand how the language works. Start with simple books and work your way up. Every day, I tried to learn something new. I would learn one new word and use it in a sentence. Some words were hard, like beautiful or butterfly, but every time I learned a new word, I felt like I was unlocking a new part of the world. Tip 14. Learn one new word a day. It doesn't have to be a big word. Just one new word a day will help you grow. There were moments when I felt so frustrated, though. One time, I was trying to understand a homework assignment, and I just couldn't get it. I felt so stupid. I cried and thought, "Why is English so hard for me?" But then I remembered something my mom always said: the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful places. So I picked up my pencil and tried again. Tip 15. Don't give up, even when it's hard. Learning a language is like climbing a mountain. It's tough, but the view at the top is worth it. As I continued my journey, I started watching more movies in English. At first, I used subtitles, but over time, I didn't need them anymore. I could understand the jokes, the emotions, and the stories. It felt like I was part of a new world. Tip 16: Watch movies and shows in English. It's a fun way to learn new words and understand how people speak. One evening, I was sitting with my dad. He doesn't speak much English, but he looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you, Emily." I asked him why, and he said, "Because you never gave up that night." I felt like I had made him proud, not just by learning English, but by showing him that I could face challenges. Tip 17: Remember why you started. There will be hard days, but always remember why you wanted to learn English. It will give you strength. There was also a time when I helped a friend who was learning English. She was struggling, just like I had. I sat with her and shared my story, telling her not to worry about mistakes. We practiced together, laughing at the funny words we said. Helping her reminded me of my own journey and how far I had come. Tip 18: Teach someone else. When you teach, you learn even more. It's a great way to strengthen your skills. As I look back, I realize that English has opened so many doors for me. I've made new friends, watched incredible movies, and even helped others. But most of all, English has taught me patience, courage, and the power of small steps. Tip 19: Celebrate every small win. Whether it's learning a new word or having a short conversation, celebrate it. Each step matters. I know my journey isn't over. There are still more words to learn, more books to read, and more conversations to have. But I'm excited about the future. English is no longer something I fear. It's something I love. Beautiful thought. Every word you learn is a seed, and every sentence you speak is a flower blooming in the garden of your life. What has been your biggest challenge in learning English?